Well, first of all, let's just talk about the trilogy as a whole. I'm gonna put these right here because just distractions. Um, so let's talk about the trilogy as a whole. Now that I finally played it, I pretty much talked about this yesterday. I guess I'll just reuse the same talking points, and it was mainly towards someone in chat that said, "I know who they are. I'm just, you know, not like trying to call them out or anything." Um, But they said they don't understand why people dislike the 13 series. And I said I can see why. Um, I'm even going to throw 12 in here too. Because 12, I feel, is kind of in the same bag. Um, People automatically discredit 11 for what it is because it's an MMO. They always try to say it's not a Final Fantasy game, but these games right here are drastically different pretty much than anything that comes before it, right? Like they're so different. Um and I pointed out, especially in the 13 series, the 13 series has it kind of gets a little Final Fantasy 2 going on a little bit, where there's no happiness. There's no happiness in 2 at all. If you remember, people don't really like to talk about that because they like to think the storylines really only happen in 4 and beyond. But you go back to 2, it's all doom and gloom in 2. I mean, even in 1, there's like happiness to some degree. There's like no happiness at all in 13's world. Period. It is very doom and gloom the entire time. Throughout all the games. The only happiness comes from the character interactions, but the actual world itself is pretty damn negative. Like, think about it. In 13, their entire world is a lie, and not even and we're going past the main cast. Everyone who exists in this world, even on the bottom outside of Cocoon, their entire world is a lie. They're all being manipulated. They're all pawns, a part of some scheme by the gods. There is no happiness to be had there. And it starts that way and it ends that way. And there's very few moments that are about joy. The only joy really comes from like Zaz and Vanille going to the casino area, and that's pretty much it. That's pretty much it. And I use the comparison of Final Fantasy X as an example. Like, Sin is destroying the world, causing death for everybody. The idea of death is everlasting in the world. No one can escape it. Everyone knows about it. We see Killiga get destroyed. Yuna has to do her dance, sending the dead. But then what do we do right after that? We go to Luca and we play Blitzball and we forget about it. Happy moments. There's a lot of interactions with Titus being an idiot because he doesn't know the world's customs, which leads to moments of happiness. Yuna laughing, Riku scared of lightning bolts. All these people teasing her because of it. All this stuff of happy moments along your journey. 13 has none of that. It is doom and gloom the entire time. Except in 13.2, where they try to add Mog to make up for some joy, and people kind of don't like it. So it's a very depressing world. Even they even have like fun, happy moments in a bunch of the ones that come prior to this. But there's just it's very serious. It's a very different tone of a game compared to anything that's been released prior. Um, I can see people not liking that at all. Because you know what I mean.
Thank you.
Cupo.
Hey, thank you for the 27-month resub, Starry Dance. Thank you. Choco, yeah, and see, like, and Chocolina is liked so much because she is the pillar of happiness in the final two games. That's like she's literally just happiness incarnate in a game that doesn't have any. Like, that's literally why she sticks out so much because there is no joy in this world. It's a pretty shitty world. Not as saying like the game shit. The world, they have terrible conditions in this world. So it makes sense that people aren't happy. And unfortunately, and this goes even beyond this series, is when your stories are revolve predominantly around negativity and there's very little happiness, um, people end up not really liking those kind of stories. There is a huge correlation between endings that end not happy and people not liking them. People like happy endings, but I'm just using that and painting it over the entire trilogy in terms of just happiness in general. There's very little happy moments in these games. It's doom and gloom. It can be exhausting, is what I'm getting at. It can be pretty exhausting. Um, there's nothing to really break it up. Um, but then also, I think it also has a bunch of characters that just character archetypes that people don't like. For instance, someone said early in the trilogy that they thought Lightning was lame. She was the worst character in the entire like series in terms of like 13 series. I don't really see how she's any different from Cloud and Squall. She's just a girl that's a brooding girl. Squall's a brooding guy. Cloud's a brooding guy. It's the same archetype. I don't really see how it's any different, really. Drastically different from Yuna or Tidus or Zidane, right? But it's archetype that's already been done before. I can see why people would hate Snow. Snow seems to be someone that people hate. I think it's the character archetype because it's someone that's an idiot that tries to mindlessly save people pretty much, but he's a dumbass. And then I personally think the hate on Hope is really unjustified personally because I think his rational, like what he chooses to do, I think makes sense personally. Um, but I can see why people would walk away from these and say they would hate these characters. But I've always had the same argument for Final Fantasy VIII, and I love this game. I said if these characters were voice acted, I think a lot of people would hate most of these characters too. Um, uh, for me, I think my biggest complaint with the original game is the fact that I just wish they would have stuck to their guns. The game, I like the fact that the game is very different from everything. I appreciate that because I don't really want all the games to be the same because that's boring. But I honestly wish it would have been linear the entire time from start to finish. The corridors are boring. I'm not disagreeing with that at all. Um, but I wish they did that from start to finish and like the whole Grand Pulse stuff. Uh, I wish that was at the end of the game, like post game, because I feel it's a bit jarring, like Savannah said earlier, to get thrown into 30 hours of being on rails for the story, and then you get thrown into an open world that can also take like 30 hours just to go right back on rails for the ending of the game. I wish they would have just did it start to finish the entire time. I did feel, yeah, no, I did. When we left Grand Pulse because I exhausted everything you could do during it, I smashed I smashed through everything else the game had to offer, and it felt unsatisfying. I had no problems with the final boss, which didn't even make it feel final. Um, And then I do think the final boss in the original 13 is pretty weak, and I think they remify that in the second game. Um, compare the final boss in Final Fantasy 13 to like Sephiroth. It doesn't compare, right? It doesn't compare. Compared to like Sin, it doesn't compare. So I do think the 13 boss is pretty weak in terms, but it's pretty clear that the story is really about the character's journey more than the boss. Um, so there's that. But I wish they would have just stuck to their guns. I wish it was just a linear game from start to forward. I feel like they throw the Grand Pulse stuff in the original 13 because they just want to appease the old fans. And rather than stick to their guns and do something completely new like they did with 12. People don't like 12 because it's completely different. Like they don't like what it offers. It's completely different. And I think that's fine. I personally think that's fine. I don't like it. That's why it's a C game for me. But I did appreciate that it was very different. Um but anyways, that's this one. Uh Ultimately, I did end up liking it though. I liked it more than 12. Um as for 12, I didn't 13 2. The 13 2 is they try to backpedal on what they established in 13 combat wise. Now the combat is still like mostly the same, I guess exploration wise, but they try to give you more grand pulse the entire game, which is fine. They try to give people what they want more. But unfortunately, and I talked about it yesterday as that person's comment, and I think Lumi hit it on the head the best, is that I don't think many people played 13-2 nor Lightning's Return because they didn't like the original. Um, I think that's where it kind of sucks because I think 13-2 is better than 13. The only thing I think is worse is is and I don't know how you describe it. Unless you make it extremely basic to understand, time travel is very hard to understand, to keep up, like to understand people's motivations. And that's the hardest thing about this game. Is like they establish so many things with Caius, but it's hard to keep track of it all because you're like, oh, okay, what is his motivation at this time? That's the hardest thing about 13-2 is to understand like how it's all supposed to make sense in the end. And that's just a time travel problem. It's really hard to follow. It has the same problem 13 has. It's really hard to follow the story, but for different reasons. This reason is because it's time travel and it's confusing. This is because they literally make a lot of buzzwords and they're all this very similar, so it can be easily confusing if you don't read the data logs. But why would you read the data logs? Because you established a series of almost 20 years prior of not reading data logs. So, uh, yeah, I think 13-2 is better than the original, but I think its storyline is harder to digest. Um, so it's in a way they're kind of the same, I think. But I thought it was a lot of fun. I was getting pretty annoyed with not figuring out how to beat the boss, but that's a me problem. But I really like the bad guy in 13-2, Caius. I think he's pretty cool. I like them. Um, the whole Valhalla stuff is a bit jarring as well. It like compare the difference between 10 and 10-2 between 13 and 13-2. It's huge. You feel more like you're in the same world from 10 to 10-2. You don't in 13. It's like from the jump between these two feels very huge. You save the world at the end of, or you save Cocoon at the end of 13, and then bam, fucking lightning is now a fucking Night in Valhalla all of a sudden. It's a huge jump. Um, it almost feels like jump the shark territory. And I could see people not liking that too because it feels very like, all right, sure. But I thought 13.2 was pretty enjoyable. I thought it was pretty fun. Um, yeah. And then I don't know where I would put this one. I kind of want to put it here, but I kind of want to put it here. Maybe even here. I don't know. I might do this. Uh, uh, can I not like put these here anymore? I guess they won't let me. I could just reset it. I don't know where I would put Lightning's returns really. Uh, the one thing I like and dislike about it is it's an open world game, and that's fine. The storyline is again, it's a huge jump from even this. Like you go from Lightning, you go from Sarah dying to literally okay, Lightning's a god now, 500 years in the future. Like it's like what? Like what? Um it's pretty wild, but the gameplay is fun. It's fun gameplay. I think it's great. It's fun to play the game. I do feel like but I won't lie. I like the presentation of the storyline in the first one the best, I'll be honest. I kind of like it. Uh so I don't know. I think I have a hard time figuring out where I would put this. I don't really know. Not really. I want to think I'd put it like this, but I don't really know. But anyways, Lightning Returns. I like the fashion in the game for the same reason I like the dress spears in Final Fantasy 10-2. I think it's pretty cool. Whoever said that they felt that the person who worked on it had a real hard on for Lightning, you definitely get the feeling in this game, especially seeing as she's the only character you can play as, and she has a bajillion dresses in the game to go through. I wish they were more useful. I won't lie, because I felt like I felt like an overwhelming majority of them kind of sucked. But what are you gonna do? I do think I did have a problem with the item system though, because I apparently I played the game too effective, and that was to my own detriment because I didn't unlock the items I needed. There's low, mid, and high tier upgrade items you need to level up your abilities. And apparently I missed the mid tier ability items because I killed the enemies. I extinct the enemies too early. And I didn't apparently the enemies level up as the game goes on. As the days pass, they get harder and harder. And that means their pools of items gets better and better in terms of what they drop. And apparently I killed them off too early and I screwed myself because I couldn't upgrade I couldn't a lot of the spells I was using, I couldn't upgrade them after a point. I had the upgrade materials after them in plenty, but I couldn't get the upgrade materials I needed to upgrade them there. And I won't lie, I did not like that. I didn't like the fact that I get punished for playing the game too effective or using the systems that the game gives me and being too good at it. So I was pretty annoyed by that after a while. I won't lie. But other than that, that's mainly my biggest complaint. I thought it was a pretty fun game. I think it's ridiculous. It does. I also know that it doesn't tell the full story of the game too. Apparently, but I don't. You could say the same for 10. Apparently, there's more story to discover. But I thought it was pretty fun. I thought it was really nice. Mm, but as a trilogy as a whole, I can see why people didn't like these. I think they don't establish characters that people identify with or that people like. Um, I think that's one of the issues that it has, because that's a big part of these games is you establish characters that people latch onto. I think there's a bunch of characters here that people don't latch onto. But I also think it's a very different series in terms of doom and gloom. It's very it's just a very different world. There's even happy moments in 15. And 15's pretty depressing too. Mm, so I don't know. I'm glad I finally played the game. Or I played them. I'm glad I finally played them, and I'm glad I can finally move past um move past hold on, I gotta take a picture of this. Oh no, oops. Sorry. Thank you. I can finally move past not having my own opinion and just saying that it seems like everyone hates it. I don't hate it. I don't hate this series at all. I still stand by. I think ultimately I think I enjoy them more than 12. But they're definitely not my favorite one.